So wonderful. Very pleased to have you all here today. Today's topic of driving sustainability in British Columbia. As I've just mentioned, we're here to talk about unlocking the benefits of GRESB assessment. We're going to be exploring the role that GRESB can play in advancing sustainability or ESG performance in your organization. For those of you who are maybe new to GRESB, it stands for Global Real Estate Sustainability Benchmark, so GRESB. It's a globally recognized framework that provides real estate companies with a comprehensive method to assess their environmental, social, and governance performance. Today, we're going to explore really specifically how in British Columbia, property owners, property managers, and real estate investors can leverage GRESB to drive sustainability practices, benchmark performance, increase transparency, and foster long-term resilience in real estate portfolios. So, as I've mentioned before, my name is Sarah Smith. I'm a principal with Prism Engineering. If you haven't heard of us before, we're really focused on, as a company, changing systems for a better world. And for us, that means helping organizations achieve their energy, climate, and asset renewal objectives by providing integrated engineering, energy management, and sustainability services. So me personally, I'm a sustainability strategist. I've been working over 15 years with organizations in the commercial and government and industrial sectors to design and implement sustainability or ESG strategies, policies, and programs. Prism Engineering is also a GRESB partner, and we can help you on your journey if you want to hear a little bit more after today's session. I have the pleasure of introducing to you Robert Slowko. He is the Director of America at GRESB. He manages new GRESB participants and investor members for Western Canada, Western USA, and Latin America. Prior to joining GRESB, Robert has a long history of working in this space. He's a senior member of MSCI ESG coverage organizations, spearheading rapid ESG business growth across the US. Earlier, Robert was working as a business development manager for the hedge fund group Thomson Reuters. He also held a number of positions in the financial industry, including international market trading at Galleon International, senior roles at Global Fund Custody at RBC Dexia Investor Services, foreign exchange trading, and economic research. So great background, some great insights he'll share today. I have the pleasure of also introducing you to Ryan McNamara. Sorry, he's with Wesgroup Properties, and he's the senior manager focused on energy and carbon. So Ryan's story and history is he's a professional engineer and certified energy manager, and he specializes in building energy and sustainability. He has a background of 10 plus years in building science, mechanical design, energy modeling, building certifications, really. And he supports energy and sustainability goals for both standing assets and new development projects. This includes everything from leading specific energy efficiency and emission reduction projects to the creation of corporate policies and strategies, all in an effort to move Wesgroup forward on its path to net zero. Now, you may have come to today's webinar expecting to see Nicole Heward and Nicole Heward from Prism Engineering and Malcolm Shield from Wesgroup Properties. They were not able to join us today, so I will be stepping in to facilitate the conversation, and Ryan will be sharing the story of Wesgroup's journey. So what's our plan for our agenda for today? We're going to first hear from Robert. He's going to give us an overview of the GRESB assessment, and then we're going to pass things over to hear a little bit about Wesgroup's journey from Ryan. And then we're going to have a bit of an opportunity for a discussion. We have some questions set up to talk a little bit more about the challenges, the benefits, tools, and resources you might access. And then we're going to turn it over to you to ask some questions of our, I'd say, panelists today. So before we do that, a few housekeeping items. I'll invite you to use the chat. We will be paying attention to the chat feature. So the other thing that we'd like to invite you to do to get a sense of who's in the room, who's joining the call today, we are going to start with a quick survey where we'll be sharing results. with the group. We'll be using the Slido platform to understand where you're calling in from and what's your experience and background with GRESB, as well as what kind of role you're playing in your organization. So if you haven't used Slido before, you can scan the QR code on the slide deck here, or I'm going to put into the chat the link to the Slido platform, and I'll invite you to bring that up in a separate window. Now, we will also be using Slido for Q&A today, so we'll share with you in just a moment how that works. But to get you in and using the Slido platform, we're going to ask you a few questions first. So I'm assuming that that setup gave you enough time to find your way to the Slido platform. We're going to ask you first a few questions, and then share with you how you might ask us questions as we go through today's session. So we'll give you a few moments to find the Slido poll. I can see there's a number of folks responding. Let us know, where are you calling in from? What's your background with GRESB? A few folks, we'll give it a few minutes. Okay. So we'll give it another 30 seconds. We see a few more folks responding. If you haven't found it yet, you can still scan the QR code on the left here, or click on the chat and find the link in the chat. See that there's a few more folks responding. If you haven't found that yet. And if you're having trouble accessing the Slido, you can also send a question in the chat throughout the session. So we'll give you another few moments. Let's invite you to take a look. So who do we have in the room today? We have folks from Vancouver. We have folks from Boston. Excellent. Welcome from Boston, Burnaby, Victoria, and BC. Wonderful. We've got some folks who are very familiar with GRESB assessment. So excellent to hear some stories, maybe from a peer in the space with Wesgroup Properties. We've got some folks who are here curious, very unfamiliar with GRESB. So we've got a mix of folks in the room. That's great to see. And in terms of the type of role you're playing in your organization, we've got sustainability and energy managers. So let's take a look at, you will see when you're looking at the Slido platform that there is a place to toggle back and forth between responding to Slido questions, and then there's a Q&A portion. So you should see that in the future, depending on whether you're looking at it with your phone or online in a separate window. But please add your questions there. You can also upvote if there's a question that somebody else has already asked as we're going through the session today. Make sure we get to those questions at the end. So without further ado, please let me join me in welcoming and passing the mic over to Robert.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Welcome, everybody. Thank you very much for taking time to be with us today. Hopefully, it's going to be a useful session for everybody. As you nicely pointed, some of you are familiar with GRESB, some not so much. I'll be happy to give you an overview, a very brief one. Before I start, my name is Robert Slowko. As Sarah mentioned, I'm a director at GRESB. I'm responsible for Western Canada, Western US, and Latin America, and I'm responsible for the new participants and new investor members. And if you're not familiar with the terminology, I'm also going to give you a little bit of an explanation what it actually goes about. So let's start from the very beginning, from the very base. What is GRESB? GRESB is a mission-driven organization that has been brought to life to promote sustainability in the real estate industry. Initially, this GRESB stood for Global Real Estate Sustainability Benchmark. After a few years of our experience with real estate, we also opened it up to infrastructure. But here we're going to be speaking about real estate. So 15 years ago, GRESB was initiated to life by 3 pension plans, 2 out of Holland, 1 from the UK. And the idea behind it was, the vision behind it was that those investors, those pension plans wanted more transparency, more visibility in respect to non-financial risks. And they were thinking about those risks from the materiality standpoint, meaning they wanted to understand how, whether they were subjected in the investee firms with some types of non-financial risks that may pose a threat in respect to value degradation or value destruction, and they may be overlooking also some opportunities for value creation. This was the vision, and this is how GRESB started. Sarah, if you could just advance to the next slide. This slide, in a way, depicts how GRESB builds the ecosystem, and it's not the full ecosystem that GRESB has created, but it's the one that is really important for us to understand here. So you can see that GRESB is in the middle. It's the circle in the middle. We are sort of a middleman. We are the intermediary. We are this independent party that is supposed to bring in more transparency to the real estate industry. On the right-hand side, you can see the circle with portfolios and assets. And on the left-hand side, institutional investors. These institutional investors represent those ones that are responsible for the beginnings of GRESB. And there were 3 of them at the very beginning. Right now, we have over 150 investor members, many pension plans from Canada, but it's not just pension plans anymore. It's also asset managers that allocate to real estate. This is also endowments, foundations. There are some investment banks that use GRESB for their underwriting purposes. You can think of that left circle, these institutional investors, as information takers. They want GRESB mechanism, which was created as a uniform, consistent mechanism that they could apply across all sectors of the industry and all geographies, to be able to read better what those risks that the managers are exposed to are like, and whether those managers do anything about those risks. And because of this, those institutional investors can paint a better picture of the risk-return profiles. So not just financial information, but also non-financial information, more holistic view to be able to manage the capital better. And on the right-hand side, there are portfolios and assets. This is what is called portfolios and assets, but it's really portfolios and funds. Real estate portfolios and funds. Why do we have those participants? Why do they even join? Well, there's 3 major benefits for them to really join GRESB. And the first one is that GRESB provides the sort of a template of risks and opportunities on the non-financial side, meaning that they don't have to invent or reinvent the wheel again. It's been proved in fire over 15 years of GRESB history through the lens of institutional investors, what they care about, to basically follow the template and address those risks one by one and apply them to their specific situations. This is very important to essentially build healthier, stronger, more resilient companies. This is a process to educate themselves about those risks, because if anybody manages a real estate portfolio, they obviously want to be aware of what risks that they are exposed to. So that's one benefit. The other benefit is communication with the investors, communication with their clients. It's much more credible to use GRESB as an independent party, unbiased sort of auditor, to present what I look like as a manager and what my fund and portfolio looks like from the risk standpoint. And to be able to, based on the report, speak about where I fall short, where my strengths are, what I'm doing about my weaknesses. That's a communication tool. It's also, in the process, there's lots of education. So that's the method or mean to attract capital from the investors or to retain capital. So that's benefit number 2. And broadly speaking, benefit number 3, there's a growing web of all kinds of sustainability regulations. And GRESB helps navigate that landscape, and also helps with compliance to many of those schemes, and helps with understanding data information that is necessary to be in a good standing vis-a-vis the authorities. So this would be the three benefits for them. Or that right circle represents over 2,200 participants globally in over 80 markets, 80 countries, sorry. The left circle represents over 150 investors right now. So here I'll pause. I'll let Ryan speak about his experience with GRESB.
Excellent. So over to you, Ryan, to tell us a little bit of story of your journey at Wesgroup.
Great, thank you so much. So yeah, my name is Ryan McNamara. I sit within the sustainability group here at Wesgroup. So Wesgroup, if you're not familiar, we're a private real estate firm. We're based out of Vancouver. We have over 60 years of delivering housing in the lower mainland of British Columbia. At this point, we're over 250 employees, mostly in our downtown office here. We're vertically integrated, so we have a lot of different departments in-house, and most notably, we have a development and construction arm that does the new buildings. And we also have a standing asset portfolio that we manage. So on the new development and construction side, we have over 50 projects that are in some stage of the development process. I think we have almost 10 active construction sites today, many of which are in our master plan communities. So River District in Southeast Vancouver, Brewery Districts in New Westminster, Inlet Districts in Port Mooney, and more in the pipeline. The focus of the new developments has always been residential, though we do build all major asset classes. So we've delivered over 7,000 homes to date. Obviously, that number is always ticking up. We're doing more and more purpose-built rental these days, and every purpose-built rental project will have a certain portion of non-market housing. So 900 units in our near-term pipeline, and that's also going up all the time. On the standing asset side, we have over 4 million square feet in our income producing portfolio. It's our managed portfolio, and significant growth in the near-term pipeline there as well. Quite a mix of tenants, but we have made an effort to develop strong relationships with a lot of government and institutional type tenants that lease a large portion of our square footage, but then over 250 other commercial tenants, and that's not even to mention all of our residential tenants in our purpose-built rental portfolio. Next slide. All right, so why do we, as Wesgroup, submit to GRESB? Wesgroup formally established a sustainability team about 3 years ago. Prior to that, we still had sustainability initiatives. They were just kind of more grassroots. They were led by specific individuals. We didn't really have a cohesive strategy or direction. As you start down your sustainability journey, it's a really broad umbrella. There's a lot of different directions you can take with it. So the GRESB real estate standard provided a framework for us to build on. Basically, it's constantly evolving and updating to remain current. It reflects global trends and priorities within real estate sustainability. I mean, at a glance, it basically answers the question of what is important in commercial real estate sustainability today. And as it was created as it's a global benchmark. It came out of Europe, as Robert mentioned, but there's sort of growing uptake in North America and in Canada. He can probably provide you the specific numbers, but it's really becoming the de facto sort of standard. And most notably for us, it's real estate specific. So a lot of the other reporting frameworks, sustainability reporting frameworks you can use, like GRI, we found are a lot more intensive. GRESB comparatively is lower barrier to entry for completing that reporting effort. On the measure progress side, so if we established, we think it's a good framework. You could just do shadowing, and look at the scorecard and go through it and say we think we get X points here or there and figure out where you think you are. But in order to have real accountability, which is one of our core values, we're a value-driven organization. You need to formally submit. We wanted to hold ourselves accountable. And that's allowed us to track our progress year over year. So this is our third year submitting. and we've made significant gains each year. And we can sort of track that back and compare against our previous personal best and always sort of be striving to do better. We have an internal goal we've set for where we want to get to in 5 years. And so they're quantitative. It's a results-driven exercise. Just really resonates well with our executive and how they make decisions. Like it's just a very goal-driven organization. And so it's been effective at getting buy-in from our leadership, even for things that I really wouldn't have thought we'd get much traction on. But by being able to demonstrate the data coming out of our GRESB report, it's been very productive. Statement of intent, what we mean is, we're a privately held, tightly held organization, so we don't have a lot of external stakeholders or investors, but we do have close relationships with our lending partners, and participating in GRESB demonstrates our commitment to sustainability. So a lot of them are still trying to establish for themselves what like sustainable investment in real estate means to them and how they want to go about it. But the fact that we submit to GRESB, it's an industry recognized third party, the de facto standard, like I mentioned before, it adds more credibility than just providing an internally generated sustainability report. And it's helped with those relationships and discussions. And then the last thing, GRESB is an acronym. The B is the benchmarking. Benchmarking, currently our cohort, it generally consists of much larger institutional real estate funds and that are leaders in the space. And so it's good to always look to what they're doing, because usually they're sort of signaling the trends. But they're generally groups that we wouldn't normally directly, compare ourselves to if their GAVs will be like 5 to 10 times the size of ours. So this is really where we kind of turn to the audience and these types of engagements, because we would love for there to be more uptake from other real estate funds that sort of more closely align with us, and we all benefit. I'm regularly meeting with the sustainability groups from different real estate firms, and while other aspects of the business like sales may be competitive, the sustainability teams, we're all just trying to do better. And so being able to like benchmark and compare against each other, I think everybody would benefit. So rising tide lifts all boats, or we're all in this together, or whatever sort of saying you want to call on. But I see this as kind of a win-win for everybody, the more people that participate.
Excellent. So you've got a bit of a background on what is GRESB. We've heard a little bit about Wesgroup and their journey. Robert, I saw you wanted to jump in and say something.
Sure, I can add something to what Ryan said. What I mentioned in my sort of preface presentation in respect to the benefit for the participants, yes, it's about you. It's about understanding your strengths and weaknesses, but it's not only that. It's also about the others. It's about how you fare versus your peers and competitors. Where you're stronger, where you're weaker, and however you want to use this information, whether you want to position yourself better vis-a-vis the potential investors, or you just want to be simply a stronger, more resilient company, or the strongest, and the most resilient company in the market, in your specific market, vis-a-vis your peers and your competitors. That's why we're striving to build this most complete benchmark globally.
Excellent. So we have planned a discussion that gets into a little bit more of the challenges and the benefits and a few tools and resources. So let's start with a question kind of going back to you, Ryan. I'm sure what's on everyone's mind who hasn't responded to GRESB before, what's it really like? What are the challenges, that you've faced at Wesgroup in responding, and how have you faced and overcome those challenges? I think we'll start with you, and then we'll turn you over to you, Robert, to maybe give us a larger perspective on what you see happening in the industry. But over to you first, Ryan.
Sure. So biggest challenges. So we we don't have like a sustainability reporting team or person. So this the first year reporting, it was a bit of a lift to get all of our data together for the first time and establish processes. It does get easier, a lot easier in the subsequent years, but that first year of getting everything together was a bit of a lift. I'd also say that Wesgroup has a entrepreneurial history and you know prides itself on being creative and agile in its leadership style. But because of that, there's a lot of things that we do, and it's like a standard practice. We've been doing it for years, but it's not really written down anywhere, not in a formal policy or a form of evidence that would actually be something that we could submit as evidence to GRESB, because a lot of the indicators require evidence. So the first year, we had to go through the process of actually writing down some policies, again, for things that we were already doing. They just weren't actually written down before. So that was a bit of an effort, but once it's done, then you just have to keep it current, and it's much easier to keep something that's already been written current than to write it in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Great. So data collection and capturing some of the things you're already doing. And that it gets easier in year 2 and 3 once you've done that heavy lift. Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Robert, do you want to give us a perspective? What do you see when you're kind of new to GRESB? What are those first couple of years like? Do you see challenges that are common throughout new participants?
I'd say Ryan has given us a good picture of the challenges. Obviously, the new participants, they face a pretty substantial process of data collection, information collection, documentation, metrics, etc., organization of all that. To tackle these challenges, there are different ways and means which we recommend, and I can tell you about what I would recommend to these new participants.
Great. Okay. So some thinking about getting ready to get organized, collect data, to capture maybe some things that are already happening. Maybe we can talk a little bit about those tools and resources that are available for support, Robert. So for new reporting entities, particularly in the beginning of that assessment process, I want to talk a little bit about that for us. And maybe Ryan could then afterwards tell us about maybe some of the ones that he accessed and were helpful, if that's relevant.
Absolutely. I point to a few, really. There's more, but just for the sake of this presentation and for the people just to have some kind of an understanding what's available for them. You're not alone in this process. First of all, the new participants, what happens is when they're faced with the challenge of submitting to GRESB, they either internalize it or externalize it. When I say externalize it, that means they ask for help some consultants, like, for example, Prism Engineering, which is a partner in British Columbia. Some participants do some of the work with their own resources and ask consultants to help them in some other aspects and areas, so sort of like a hybrid approach. So we see all kinds of approaches, really, but I just want to point that there are specialized consultants, and we have a bunch of logos on our platform. As I mentioned at the very beginning, we are an ecosystem builder. Partners are also part of this ecosystem. And those organizations help new participants join GRESB and also existing participants improve within GRESB. And it can be very targeted in some specific area. All can be everything. So that's one. The second one that is very important is there's a privilege of the grace period in the first year. The way we see the first year is the year to educate yourself, to get familiar with GRESB. Nobody expects you to be the superstar in year 1. And Ryan pointed to that. The first year, I mean, they've been steadily improving over the years, but obviously the first year, you can expect your score to be probably the lowest on your GRESB journey. So the grace period provides you with this level of confidence that there's not going to be any scrutiny any investor scrutiny or any kind of GRESB stakeholder scrutiny in respect to your score. You don't have to focus on that score. It sort of sends the signal that this is your trial year, first year. The third, I guess, aid is the pre-submission consultation. As the name suggests, it's a consultation that we run that is available to our participants prior to hitting submit button, meaning that they do their best in respect to answering all the questions they can. They send us all the answers, and then together we sit and we walk them through whether those answers are complete, insufficient, where insufficient, how they can improve the answers to get basically more points, higher score, more recognition for their efforts. They can also ask us for guidance for those questions. In those questions, they have no idea how to answer, how to address. So that's the pre-submission check. That is also super helpful, especially for the first-time participants. And then we have results consultation after the release of the final results, of the final reports. So the reports are released every year, beginning of October. So that results consultation happens after the release, so later in October or later in the year. And it's an opportunity to sit again with experts and to analyze why, for example, there were some missed opportunities in scoring in section XYZ. So that's the work that we do together with our participants to help them improve going forward for the following year. Just to summarize, I talked about consultants, the employment of consultants if it's necessary, sometimes very targeted. The grace period, which we encourage to take, it's an option also. Pre-submission check and results consultation. That would be the tools that I would recommend to new participants and sometimes to existing participants.
Right. So there's support available. Do you want to comment, Ryan, on what kind of support you accessed at Wesgroup as
Sure.
Yeah.
So Robert didn't even touch on all that. Like GRESB puts out a lot of reference material. So like the real estate standard is quite a hefty document, but it does lay out exactly what is meant by every single indicator in the standard and all the definitions and what evidence will qualify. And then there's a companion scoring document, which again is very long in detail, but it does lay out exactly how the scoring is done. So there's no real guesswork for at least at this point. Once you're familiar with the documents, they also have templates and a handful of other tools. So those resources are quite handy. It's also, I think most real estate firms, if you don't already, you probably will have some sort of ESG platform, and a lot of the major platforms will have a reporting module or service that will basically get all of your quantitative data formatted and ready to push over to the GRESB portal. Many of them are GRESB partners for that as well. So for our 3 years of submission, we've used a platform called Measurable that has assisted us with the quantitative data preparation. And then for the qualitative, all of your policies and all of your internal stuff, we did that ourselves, or as our sustainability team. But yeah, that's something that could definitely be outsourced to a consultant if you didn't want to take it on in-house. It's just sort of like a resourcing question.
Excellent. So a lot of resources and support available. Robert?
Absolutely.
Yes. So we've got some folks on the call and in the session today who are becoming familiar with GRESB. The question to both of you, we've heard some great examples of what to expect in that first year, that there's some great tools and resources available to you. What advice would you give to an organization that's getting ready to report first time ever to the GRESB assessment? Maybe I'll start with with you first, Robert, and then pass it over to you, Ryan. And I'll maybe also say to everyone who's in the webinar today, feel free to ask a question either in the Slido platform or put it in the chat. We're going to be shifting over and looking at a few questions in a moment. So give you an opportunity to ask some questions of Ryan and Robert. But what advice would you give to a new first ever GRESB assessment participant?
So the way I would picture that, I'll be speaking more general. This is what I hear from a number of participants across all these regions that I work with. I guess Ryan is going to have much more specific experience and much more specific advice from Wesgroup. But what I can say is this: many people come to us and they are very focused on the score. They come and they say, like, what if I don't score, I don't know, 70 or whatever? Like, I'd say my advice would be not to get bugged on the score, not to focus on the score in the first year, to embrace the process. There's so much value in the process. There's so much that you're going to learn in respect to how your company operates, because you're being pointed in the right direction where to look, and you're going to educate yourself on how to speak about sustainability through, again, the lens of this standard, which is a global standard, global consensus that's been around for 15 years, and is going to help you, for example, with some educated conversation about your efforts or lack of those efforts in certain areas, let's say, with some investors that are going to ask these questions. And it's whether you're going to score 20 or 90. It's still going to be super helpful. So I'd say embracing the process, delving into this, learning as much as you can, taking the grace period just to make sure that it's pure education and as much fun as possible, as much as it can be fun. And the second point I would make, do it as early as possible. Why? Because GRESB is a low frequency mechanism. We run on an annual basis. If you start now, you're going to be subjected to the 2025 reporting process. You're going to get the first report in October 2025. There's so much that you have to organize first. There's so much in data, metrics, information, documentation to organize, to put together, to do it as well as you can. And this is going to give you simply more time, more flexibility in respect to how to organize yourself. And also that's going to give you this ample time to educate yourself. And in the context of getting this report and signaling, let's say, to the investors that, yes, I do GRESB, I'm super serious about sustainability because I do GRESB. If you don't do it now, and you're not going to get this report in October 2025, the next chance is October 2026. So I'd suggest do it as early as possible. There's also a natural consequence of starting early. Simply, you can improve. And this is what happened with Wesgroup. Over the last 3 years, they've been steadily improving in terms of their standing as well. So that's what I would say in general, what I can see in the market.
Excellent. Some good advice. Pay attention to the journey and start early. Start now. What about for you, Ryan? What advice would you give to new participants?
Yeah, definitely stay humble in the first year. I think I started right around the time we got our first year results back, and my boss, our VP of sustainability, just kind of put it down on my desk and was like, okay, so this is where we are. What are we going to do about this? Definitely take it as a learning opportunity. GRESB and other presentations I've seen, they've plotted sort of average cohort scores over time. And so I know they have the data, but you think about the GRESB benchmark average is somewhere in the mid 70s, and it scores out of 100. Most firms take like 5 years to get there, and there is like a typical journey that it takes to get there. So nobody starts that high in their first year. It does just take time, and there are a lot of things that it'll take time to establish. It's like green leasing language. You get it into your master lease language, but then it'll take years before all the leases turn over and actually reaches your whole portfolio. So it's like you just need to start as early as possible, and you'll eventually get the points and the benefit. But these things just kind of take time. The other, I would say, really big positive that came out of it. So we're vertically integrated. We have a lot of different departments in house, and in going through the submission, it basically meant that we go around to every different group in the company, and we got to talk to them and build those relationships and get their input. And that was super valuable as well, just like totally separate from the reporting and the score and everything else, just like having the connections with the different groups, like our head of health and safety that I like normally wouldn't have direct interaction with, but it matters for GRESB reporting.
Excellent. Yeah. So it helps you with that integrated piece, building the relationships. And really what we're trying to do is transform systems and organizations and companies. And so the GRESB is a great platform or tool and process journey that helps you do that. So we've got some great questions from those who are online. I'm going to first turn it over. I believe this is a question for Ryan and then a question for Robert. The first one is, can Wesgroup or Ryan point to any business decisions that were made, perhaps prompted by the results or data that they received based on their participation in GRESB? What real world examples do you have of changing decision making?
I think that the one that happened last year that was the most surprising to me was that there's like a decent number of points associated with having a connection somehow between compensation and your sustainability objectives. And I initially was like, okay, I don't know how much traction that's going to have. I don't know if I should pitch that. But when we were, presenting the results to our executive, as we do annually, they were really keen on it. So our executive and our property management group and a few others, as part of their annual performance planning process, they now incorporate sustainability goals. And that's something that just wasn't, definitely wasn't happening before. So that was pretty cool.
Excellent. So finding ways of sort of integrating GRESB into expectations for performance at different parts of the organization. Great. Okay. Thanks for that. Let's turn it over to Robert to talk about a bigger picture question. What's the appetite for GRESB in Canada? Maybe if you could speak specifically about BC, but what's the comparison? How does that compare to participation in Canada to other parts of the regions that you're working with?
Yeah, I had the privilege of working across the Americas, so it's a good question. But we are closely sort of knit organization at GRESB, so we speak with the other regions, so we also have a global picture. Europe is ahead of us, okay? Ahead of the Americas. Why is that so? It's because sustainability started in, specifically speaking, Northwestern Europe, and the adoption was earlier, and there's still some adoption there. But the Americas markets, they're lagging, but at the same time they're growing really, really fast. They're catching up, and the Americas market in general is, especially North America. When I say North America, it's US and Canada. It's broader and deeper. So there's much more opportunity here than there is left, let's say, in the traditional European market. So the Americas market has been growing faster than the global average for GRESB. And I am happy to report that Canada is the leader. Canada is the leader in terms of adoption. I don't have the numbers for 2024, but as far as I can remember, in 2023, we had 80 participants out of Canada, and when we say participants, these are funds or portfolios, regardless of the size. This could be, a massive REIT, publicly listed, and it counts as one. And it can be a very small private equity real estate firm, and they count, as the second one. So there were 80 out of 555 in the Americas. So Canada is punching above its weight for sure. Obviously, in terms of absolute numbers, US much more, but US economy is also much bigger. But relatively speaking, Canada more advanced than the US, and Latin America is obviously behind.
Yeah, right. Okay. Thank you for both of those answers. Maybe I'll just pause and say, if you've got any other questions, please add it to the chat or add it to the Slido. We'll give you a few moments to consider. If something else you want to ask Ryan or Robert while we have them online. We will be providing follow-up contact information as well if a question occurs to you after today's session. So I don't see anything coming up here. So we talked about the network of participants across North America, and Canada's leading the way. We want to turn the question over to you to say, how likely are you to join these growing number of organizations responding to GRESB, respond to Ryan's call to join the community and become part of that peer network? We want to ask you now to go back into Slido and let us know, how likely is your company to pursue GRESB in the future? So it might be that you're here today and GRESB is not necessarily applicable to your organization. That's okay. You might be in a space where you're supporting your clients in responding to GRESB, or you might be in the spaces that you're unlikely to pursue GRESB at the moment. You may be considering it now, or you're already on the path. For those of you who may be more familiar with GRESB, but we heard at the beginning there. So let us know, how likely are you to pursue GRESB in the future? I'll give you a few moments to respond to that. And as we're doing that, I'm going to share with you a few more closing messages. The first one being, if you would like to reach out to any three of us who are on the call today, we'll invite you to do that. You'll notice that we have put in Malcolm Shields' contact information. Ryan was kind enough to join us today and share a great story about Wesgroup's journey. And the invitation is to reach out to Malcolm Shield, who's the Vice President of Sustainability at Wesgroup. You feel free to reach out to myself. You see my email at the bottom there, as well as Robert. Great insights and ideas and support as needed, particularly if you're in the beginning part of your journey with GRESB. And so thank you so much for joining us today. If you are going to be at the BOMEX conference next week, Robert is going to be there and would be happy to speak with you either at the conference or reach out, and he could, I'm sure, make some time in his schedule to see you sometime around the conference dates. What are the dates on the conference next week?
It's Monday through Wednesday.
Monday through Wednesday.
23rd through 25th.
25th. So reach out now if you'd like to have a conversation with Robert. So without further ado, thank you so much for joining today's session. Great to have a conversation with the two of you, Ryan and Robert. And I know that we've got a great value for folks who are on the call today. Some great questions. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.